Oh no, we're experiencing lag. You're gonna have to say that one more time. I totally missed it after
Sorry,
the
no,
intro.
it's
What'd you
okay.
say?
It's funny. We spent like 5 minutes getting the tech stuff worked out. It's been super laggy on my side before we got started, and then we're like, okay, everything's good to go. We hit live, and then it went
Yeah.
bonkers again. So I basically said, hey,
Well,
what's
you
up?
know, best laid plans.
Yeah,
Best laid
right.
plans. This is what happens. Or is it
Yeah.
best made plans? See, here's my problem with expressions.
Uh huh.
I hear them wrong sometimes.
Yeah.
And then they stick, and then I say them wrong,
Yeah.
and then people are nice and courteous, and they don't correct me, and then it never happens, and then I end up all my life saying things incorrectly. Yeah.
And maybe that leads to a new, better saying, though. Then.
Who knows? Who knows? But like I remember for a long time saying if it's any constellation instead of consolation.
But I think that's just straight up wrong because that doesn't make any sense.
I know this is. Do what?
I think that would just be straight up wrong because that doesn't make any sense.
Well, again, you would think I would know better, but I mean, and this is dead serious. This is a true confession. For years, I won't say for how long because it's even more embarrassing. But I thought that I mean, look, man, when you grow up with Vietnamese parents, they say, number one, they say all sorts of things because they may have misheard or they're just mispronouncing, and then the other is sometimes I think what are these called, sayings, euphemisms, or I don't know.
Yeah. Sayings.
Sometimes they're just weird,
Yeah.
and I don't get them. And
Yeah.
I thought maybe this was one of those.
You know who's got the best sayings is a mutual friend of ours. Like as you're describing this, you know who I think of first is Scott Bersaya.
Sweet.
Sweet land of Goshen. Because Scott's like
Yeah.
from
I love me some Scott.
yeah from Kentucky, and he's got some like awesome Southern sayings. And
yeah.
I when I hear sayings like that, I like that though because I'm just like, wait, what did you say? What does that mean? And then they explain it, and you just kind of tuck it away.
Yeah, well, exactly, and especially with Scott. I mean, you know, he grew up in Hazard, Kentucky. Yeah, it's, and I don't know. I mean, I've lived in the South all my life, and so my only point of reference is Southern culture, and that we tend to have a ton of these types of references, sayings. I don't know if that happens in the West Coast. I don't know if that happens in the East Coast. If you're paying attention and you're watching, let us know, or let me know. Well, you grew up in the South too, right?
I did. I mean, I grew up in Texas, but I mean, I grew up in the suburbs
So
of
we-
Texas. I don't know if that counts as growing up in the South. It's not like my friends
Yeah.
that I had where like
No, I was.
people have trouble understanding what they're saying because they say like, "Hey, pass that fish noir over there." It's like, what? The what? The fish noir.
Yeah, no, that's where I grew up. Yeah, that's where I grew up, Arkansas.
All right,
Accents,
man.
I love accents. It's just a thing. It's cool.
They are the best. This is the final episode.
Yeah.
We did not prepare a topic for tonight, but we did talk for just a moment before we went live, and we said that maybe we would just kind of recap what's happened over this little mini experiment of ours.
Mm-hmm.
Six of six. We kind of decided to do this on a whim too.
Right. And it's cool. I like it. I know that it's going to change into something, but I'm a little sad that it's not scheduled now. I know, like, next Monday, you and I aren't going to be getting together unless we do. But like, it's not like this, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see.
This is a kind of overlapping, or it's already started to overlap with some of the interviews that you're doing for your wind ensemble series.
Mm-hmm.
Has that?
Yeah.
Have you felt like it's affected? Because we did a bunch of these, not a bunch of. We did like a handful of these before you did your first one.
Yeah. I would say I see what you did there too, because this time around I was going to say I was going to lead with the question, and then get you talking longer than I talk, because I realized that I feel like I talk more than.
It's not a competition, Albert. We're just hanging out.
No, it's a courtesy thing. You know, I'm very well aware of my ability to use way more words than I should.
I don't get that
And
feeling
so
about you.
you know, oh, dude, man, I'm aware. Well, look, Amy tells me all the time that I talk too much.
Hey, wait, that doesn't
And
count because my wife tells me the same thing too. So is it us or is it just our?
I don't, well, I don't know. Uh, it's all the time. You know, like I remember in a couple of dinner parties, you know, when we would go over and hang out with some friends of ours, and I'm like, wow, that was a lot of fun. I had a great time, and she'll say, for you, and that's when I'm like, oh damn, I know what that means. So I've been really aware of that now.
Yeah.
Just trying to make sure that a real conversation it requires uh, well, it requires one to listen and the other to talk, and then a reciprocation of that, right? But anyway, yeah, has all of this helped? Yes, not in that. Well, I don't know. Yes, and not that I knew how it was going to help. I guess I thought that maybe what it would do was make me feel like I was going to ask smarter questions, better questions. No, none of that has changed. I think that's just research. The I think what it's done is it's gotten me to a place to be like really comfortable on camera. The idea that this is being recorded and right now millions of people can be watching. Uh,
Billions, really, right?
it no longer bothers me. Not that it, literally millions. Yeah, not that it was like super crazy, but I always feel like things like this make it more difficult for me to be myself. That's all. And so
Yeah.
I feel like this has helped me be a better teacher online
Mm.
for my students. That's my perspective. Whether or not they think I'm better, I don't know. No one's telling me. Um, but I feel more comfortable, and I feel less like I want to quit. Um, and then I think the other thing is it's allowed me to keep the interviews with other people. I want to get to the conversation more so than anything else. I think you and I have talked about this. You know, I think there's several different layers of interviews. You know, it's first date, second date, third date. For me, I want to get, and that's where I want to, really where I would like to start. And I think it has a whole lot to do with making sure, like in the case of my students, making sure they know who they're talking to, so that we don't spend 15 minutes having our guest talk about their life story. You know,
Right.
you should have read about that.
Yeah.
You know, we should have talked about that ahead of time, that kind of thing. And so, you know, that's kind of where I am with it. How about you?
Um, the reason I asked that was because when I first started doing the podcast a couple years ago, um, I was kind of shocked by how different my recollection of how the conversation went and listening to the conversation in post, the gap between those two. So similarly to like if you're practicing and you record yourself practicing and then you listen back and you're like, oh, that felt good, and you listen back and you're like, oh, that didn't sound as good as I thought, or vice versa, it felt terrible, and you listen back and you're like, oh, that actually sounded okay. There was a gap in my live conversation and my like listening to just the conversation passively afterwards. And part of that was probably, like you're in the conversation and you're trying to stay present in the conversation, but also you're thinking like, okay, do I go left or do I go right for the next question to tee up for the guest? So that's why I asked you that question. You probably haven't had time to listen to any of our talks because everyone is just like in it at the moment right now. So maybe that'll come later. I would say for me though, like just talking about what's going on. I am traditionally not a, hey, let me tell you about all my feelings kind of person. The closest people that I'll do that with are my wife and my older brother, and I'll tell them like what's going on. But even then, I mean, it's probably the similar for you. Is like once the kids are down, you're lucky if you get 15, 20, 20 minutes to catch up. Like, how did this go? Okay, this happened with so and so. This happened with so and so. Okay, cool. Anything else? All right, and then maybe you have 5 minutes of talking about your feelings. But anyway, there's not a lot of feeling talking going on, and maybe it's because we haven't had a chance to talk this long or for this extended period of time in a while. You've brought up some things for me to think about and that we talked about. So my takeaway, I would say, for the last 6 weeks has been more self-awareness of what's been going on. I told you this last week or maybe even the week before that, but that like self-care chat that we had that one week really kind of made me pause and think. Yeah, I was like, whoa, I didn't realize how unaware or bad I was at it until you started kind of talking about it. I was like, oh, and so it's really actually changed a lot about my sleep habits and the things that I'm doing between work the last couple of weeks. So elevated self-awareness would be my takeaway for the last chunk of time that we've had.
Yeah. See, right there, just listening to you talk, that is a clear. To be specific about a takeaway, instead of because I feel like I am good about talking about my feelings and that kind of thing and wandering. Therapists probably love me because then I can just talk.
Just talk
and there's there aren't any barriers. Like, you want to hear about that? Okay, all right, let's talk about that. But I think because of that, because how with me it is about feelings. I tend to be less focused, and I desire to be more focused. I desire to be more organized, but I have come to a place to accept the fact that I'm not wired that way, and it takes work to be that. And spending this time with you has really helped me see that. At first, it was this whole phase of, gosh, I really suck at what I do. Bull, it's like ways, and it's not a competition. It has nothing to do with that. But I think that we naturally compare, and it's not like I was stabbing my voodoo doll of you or anything. It was just a matter of being able to take someone life and someone that you admire, then you superimpose that on top of yours, and you're like, oh wow, there's this corner needs to be tucked in a little bit, and that corner needs to be tucked in, and that needs to be pulled out a little more, and I've done that, because you're doing a lot of stuff, and you and I, we are at the exact same life stage, with marriage and with kids and what we're driven to do with ourselves, and whether or not you feel like it, at the end of the day, from our conversations, I'm led to believe that you get a lot more done than I do, and then I think, well, gosh, how does that happen? Well, then I'm talking to you, and it's just like that. It's just precise. You're precise in your thinking. You're precise in your planning. You're precise in all, like you've thought about it. I have another colleague, Will, who is the exact same way, and I admire, and Amy's the same way, and I admire people like that, and I desire to surround myself with people like that. If I surround myself with people like me, we're not going to get crap done. We're just going to sit around and talk about, our feelings. But that is a big takeaway for me. I mean, to be completely honest, is that I am not that super planned person, yet the drive is the same, and so it takes more effort, and I learn about just the little things that you do. My guess is you even plan your emails to go out at a certain time and pre-write them and then schedule them to send. True?
I will sometimes not to that extent where it's like, okay, this is going out at 2:30 tomorrow. If I write an email, like I get to that part of the night where I'm writing a response, but I don't want it to go out at a weird time. Like I don't want it to go out at 11 p.m. or like I don't want to be emailing students at 11 p.m. at night. That just maybe I'm thinking too ahead of, but that comes across as kind of weird, right? Like I want it to be like a 9 a.m. for students. Sometimes, occasionally, I'll think, okay, what is going on in that person's day? If this hits their inbox right now, is it more or less likely to have the action that I would like to see happen from that? So maybe it is a first thing in the morning kind of email. Maybe it's it's not a Friday email. Maybe I'll just wait till first thing Monday morning. But I'm not writing like 10 emails and then scheduling them for the next day. I think the closest thing to planning for email that I'll do is I'll plan when I'm going to do email. So I know they say traditionally before I started doing the startup stuff, I would only check email once a day. And it was after the morning block had finished and like lunchtime. Or it was like the 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock afternoon lull where energy is maybe a little bit down. And the idea was to spend my best waking hours in the morning outputting whatever I needed to get done first. And then emails like a low cognitive demand thing. So I would save that for the afternoon. When I started working in the startup, if you miss that window in the morning and then China goes to sleep and then they don't get it till the next day, like instead of it being an 8-hour turnaround, it turns into a 36-hour turnaround. And so it just didn't work anymore. So I had to wake up, and then the first thing was like, okay, clear the box, put out any fires that you need to, and then get into your business. So it was happening early and late at night.
Yeah. And that's the hard part for me. Email just happens when it happens. It's the same thing. In the morning, in the evening, and then if I happen to look at it. Like if I look at my email and it's an unscheduled... I'm always looking at my email. Let's just be fair. You are too, right? But then I categorize it in my brain. It's like, ooh, this is a 1 hour response because there's a lot for me to think about here.
Yeah.
Or this is a 5-second response. If it's not in the morning, and if it's not at night, the quick ones come out pretty easily. The ones at night are they never get sent in the evening. They're always sent as the hard ones. I'll leave them as a draft because it'll take the tired brain to kind of get it all out unfiltered, and then the awake brain the next morning looks at it again, and then sort of boils it down and gets at the essence of whatever it was that I was trying to say, and the commas are put in the right place and everything is there.
Yeah.
But I have realized that the drafts are important to me now, especially for the big ones, because my procrastination has more to do with not wanting to face a difficult task and less to do with doing. I have no problems doing.
Yeah.
Never. It's the emotional pain or whatever it is that task may create. And I have discovered for myself that a way to combat that is to vomit the email out, save it as a draft, and then come back instead of try to self-edit as it goes.
Right.
That adds like another hour, just get it out, and I even make sure that I put nothing in the sender, just in case a cat comes in, or now Lydia or Alex, and they punch around and hit send, because they have sent an email that was half written. Luckily, none of those have been
biggies.
Yeah. Not writing to the dean of students, or to the director of the School of Music.
Yeah.
But I have realized that about myself, and it's because Um, I know people who schedule their emails, and they're really thoughtful about it. And it's for the exact same reason you are also. You take a couple of beats to think about it. And again, it points again to your precision of thought. I mean, Robert Duke would be so proud of you. I'm sure he is, actually. But
I haven't talked to Dr. Duke in a while.
yeah,
It's probably
well,
been a couple years now, at least.
that's less than me.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I've sent him a few emails
Yeah.
here and there,
Yeah.
just once in a while. Like, I did this thing. You taught me how to do it.
Yep.
Now it means a lot more because the second lesson that was hidden inside of that thing that you taught me, I just figured it out.
Yeah. Dr. Duke,
Yeah.
he has changed the trajectory of my life multiple times. As an undergrad, as a postgrad, and as a working professional, for sure. Actually, I'm glad we're talking about it. I should probably reach out and shoot at least an update of some sort. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure you'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, to talk about, since we're on the topic of emails and people that you admire, and the people that I tend to admire are very just polished. It's
Sure.
like whatever it is that you expect of them, they meet that expectation and then exceed it.
Yeah.
And with Duke, it's no matter when I send an email, there's a response. And it's never more than a day.
Yeah.
So, like, I think to myself, this man probably gets 500 emails a day anyway. Yet, it is a personal mission for him to clear his inbox.
Yeah.
And he just does it. And then he gets up and he reads the New York Times and runs 3 miles every morning. And then he
Drinks his coffee.
Oh. Yeah. I'm like, it's just life skills.
Inbox
Things I wanna be
zero
able to do
is
better.
not realistic for me though anymore. I don't know if I should be admitting this. Well, I am. Inbox zero. I remember when I reached a point where I was like, okay, that's not feasible anymore. Like, if I have 24 hours and if I wanted to hit inbox zero, there's all this other stuff that just wouldn't get done, and I just had to end up choosing. Part of it was like when I started taking social media a little bit more seriously. Early on, it was like I will respond to every single comment and every single message that I get to get this up and running. And then when I started doing like live streams, there's still stuff that is on the internet now that I haven't touched. It's been like 2, 3, 4 years that occasionally I'll get a note or an email or a comment about, which is super flattering. And actually with those, I usually will try to write back, depending on the situation, because, but if it's something that like doesn't need my response, it's not going to change anything if I write, I will sometimes opt to just keep going. Like I was like, sorry, I can't stop right now. So for better or worse, I'm not saying that's right. that's the stage I'm at right now.
I mean, I think that's obviously more realistic. I don't get to zero. Nor do I plan to, because my goals now are to prioritize them. It's like there are some, and here are the categories, right? If I don't respond to this email, does that hold up someone?
Yes.
Respond to
Yes.
the email.
100%. Yep. Agree.
I don't respond to this email, does he up? Okay, well then maybe I can slow down a little bit, depending on where the me part is. Like, are we talking about part assignments for wind ensemble that need to happen now? Or are we talking about something that's going to be later on? So now attached to the response timeline is a real urgency. It's like I quickly decide where. And there's probably this feature. Actually, I bet there is, and I'm just now realizing that I should use it. I prioritize these in my brain, which then easily allows me to forget them. But I think that if I use different colored flags in my little Mac Mail,
Yep.
I think that would be more appropriate, right? Don't you get different color flags? Like,
I
can
don't
there be
do
a red flag,
any.
a yellow flag, and a blue flag?
You probably could. Okay, so I will say that I employ a like one touch email policy. And the idea is
Okay,
like
what does that mean?
I never touch an email more than once. Meaning like if I open it and I look at it, I know myself that if I don't respond right now and it needs a response, I'll say like I'll respond to it later. It's gone. Like if I close that email, it's not going to happen. So either decide, does this need my response, and do it right now, or I'm not going to open the email until I have the option to respond now.
So then the subject line is what allows you to do that. Because once you open it, like, how do you know not? It's like, don't touch that email. That's going to be a 5-hour return. I mean, how do you know that?
Okay, so there's two things I do. So one thing you said earlier that I don't do anymore is I don't have any notifications on my phone, except for there's one Slack channel for the company right now, which is like the BAT channel. That if something comes through there, that's like we need to look at it right now. And there's like 3 people whose call will make my phone ring. So other than that, the only time I get a notification for something is if I go to open the application, and then all the stuff, all the push notifications will come in. So then from there, I'm not responding or like reacting to an email as it's coming in. So I'll say like, okay, I'm looking at my list, I'll do these things, and then after I do these things, then I'll check in. So earlier when I said when I check email now, it's not that I don't just check it at lunch. I'm still like very calculated about when I'm checking the email, but there are scheduled times. So there's like the morning, put out the fire. If it's a crazy day, maybe there's one before lunch. There's one definitely right after lunch. There's probably one right before dinner, and definitely one at night before I go to sleep at night. So it's just like spot checks throughout the day. And then the other thing I do is there's a like set beginning and end time to when I'm doing email. So it's like an episode of 24. There's some rule for this. I've always inherently known this, but I came across like there's actually a name for this rule, like which is whatever amount of time you allot for something, whatever your task you're doing will fill that time. So even if it's a 10-minute task, if you give yourself 25 minutes to do it, somehow you will let it stretch to 25 minutes, and it's going to fill the time. It's like the blob, So if I know that I have 25 minutes till my next thing, I feel like the clock is ticking down, and I have to get as many of these responses out as I can in the next 25 minutes. And then I'll do like a quick, maybe this last thing I'll say is like, if I know I have 25 minutes, I'll kind of take a quick spin. And if I see a name or I see a header where it's like, oh, that looks really important, I might start there. So I'm not always answering my email in chronological order. It's like quick spin. Okay, that looks important. Do that. And then maybe start working my way through. And then if I don't finish at the end of 30 minutes, then I hit it the next block.
Aha.
I don't know if this is right or wrong. I mean, that's just the way. That's my current version of my workflow.
No, it makes sense. I mean, like right now when we're virtual, like Amy and I, words are hard. We sat down yesterday, and so Lydia is doing virtual kindergarten, and of course I'm teaching virtually. She's got a side like blog thing that she's working on and trying to get up and running, and there's a lot of work goes into that. So she needs to spend time writing, and so we sat down. We're like, okay, so here's what I have to teach. Here's what Lydia has to do. Here's what she has to do, and then we just took our calendars and went bloop.
Yep.
And then but then also it was like, okay, so that means if she needs that, then I'm gonna have to give this up at this block and move it to this block, and so now I'm forced to think in like you're thinking right now. I have 25 minutes to get these emails done, and then I'll get them knocked out. My problem is I have, prior to, the scheduling conversation yesterday. My problem has been that my day has been controlled by the emails.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, that has dictated productivity, or in many cases, the lack of. And so, like the things that Albert needs to get done, and Dr. Wynn needs to get done, and Dad needs to get done, um, they all get chewed up by the email. And that's been tough. That's been really tough, and it's because there's no scheduled email time. Everything else has a schedule. But if I'm a little more Wei Pan, and I think about it that way, it makes it like my brain just exploded to hear you say that. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
Well, I would say maybe try it. I would never claim to be the authoritative figure on how to process email. It's just what is working at the moment, and there are still things that I wish was better about the email. I will say, like, a recurring theme for me in the last maybe like 6 weeks now, and part of it does pertain to email, is okay, there's like a couple steps to this. The first one is when I first started teaching high school out of grad school, I remember the principal saying, hey, the expectation is that teachers will respond to all parental emails within 24 hours. And that was new for me as a grad student coming out of school. I was like, oh, okay. Well, there's a standard now that, you expect a response within 24 hours. And so even if you get it at 5:30, and you're about to walk out of school, if you need to, you can take until, 3:30 the next day after school's ended you got like 2 hours to take care of everything that may have come in yesterday. So there are different expectations for different, like, I don't have the same email standard for everyone that I interact with. And I don't think everyone has the same email standard. I don't apply the same standard to myself for everyone. Wait, I don't know if that's, am I saying that correctly? I think so.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, like if the president of the university sends me an email, I'm not going to sit on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So that's the same thing. If I don't know you and you're emailing me, or let me say this first. If I email you and you don't know me, I don't expect a response. Like, there's no part of me that's like, I can't believe they didn't write me back. Like, zero expectation. If you don't know who I am, I'll contact you. I'll even follow up quite a few times until I get to the point where it's like, okay, they probably just don't want to respond. But I'm not afraid to follow up 2 or 3, 4 times. Just checking in. Sometimes it's just like dropping an update, and I'll get a response on the 5th email.
Yeah.
But if there's like my inner circle, direct reports, people that I'm working with on a regular basis, there's a pretty clear like 24-hour response. Like, they know I will get back to them within 24 hours no matter what, and I expect them to get back to me within 24 hours no matter what also. So, yeah, again, I don't know if that's these are the current versions, 2020 email rules.
Yeah, man, it makes sense. I imagine there's a book about that, maybe. Like I remember reading, it might have been an article out of Forbes, might have been, I don't know where I read the article, but it was like people, they interviewed a bunch of CEOs, and then they sort of came up with 10 traits that these CEOs had.
Okay.
And one of those was many of those are the things that you and I were talking about. Deal with the big ones first, first thing in the morning. But then it also said, don't respond to emails first thing in the morning. Send emails first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
As in your emails to make the thing go, and as a CEO that makes sense. It's like, wait, it's your vision, It's your company. The things that you're getting ready to do, you start it, and then the whole thing starts to filter out. That makes sense. It also makes sense that it's a sense of controlling your workday. It's like you start off, it's like, okay, these are the things that I've got to get out, and these are the things that have to get done. So these are the things that I'm going to send out. And then other people will have to respond. Once that's done, then it goes to what is the most important email to deal with, which then has that hierarchy, like, am I holding up someone else's job if I don't respond to this?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes through the level of the filters. And the other thing that I was surprised to read was that a lot of these CEOs have protected personal and family time no matter what. And like maybe two people are allowed to interrupt them, and if you're not on that list, don't you dare call. A lot of them shifts, which usually happens in the evening, and a lot of them begin their day Sunday night
Mm-hmm.
instead of Monday morning.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. And then of course it talked about self-care, and it talked about health, and it talked about sleep. So it was really interesting, and that's when I can't remember how long ago, and again I can't remember where I read it, but I remember thinking, oh well, this makes perfect sense, I'll start to do that. But it's just hard. It's hard. I find it the most difficult thing that I do.
Yeah.
Is trying to balance that with everything else.
Do you do your emails on mobile, desktop, both, wherever you're at that moment?
It depends. It depends. If it is a 2 brain cell, not a whole lot, I'll pound those out on my phone without any problems. And I wouldn't think about it otherwise. But if it's a much more involved email, if I have to really be thoughtful about it, as in if it's more than a paragraph, I tend to go straight to the computer and save those for the computer, primarily because I really suck at typing with my thumb. And I'll hit R 10 times and I'm supposed to be getting a T, but I keep hitting what looks like a T and it keeps saying R. So for that reason.
Yeah.
But I don't like to write long emails on my phone, but I think it has to do with how important that email is to me.
Yeah.
If it's someone needs a quick answer, hey, can I do this? Yes, that happens on the phone. It gets sent out. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. You?
I noticed something about, and this actually was a result of social media also too, where when there were character counts, character limitations, or if I was writing a lot of my posts on mobile, I would just say it in less words, whatever it is I was trying to say. Whereas if I had the luxury of a keyboard and a big white canvas to just kind of go at it, you start getting these multi-paragraph, multi-sentence emails. And so what I tried to do was take the brevity that I kind of adapted when I was working on a mobile device and then apply it to the desktop setting. So even though I'm typing, it's not that I'm imagining myself typing on the phone, but that sense of like, hey, your character count is getting up. And also it's like, the more I say in this email, the more things whoever I'm writing to is going to have to remember, and the less likely they're going to do what it is that I need them to do. I used to think that if I just wrote everything out and it was a neat little list that was bullet pointed and the instructions were clear, then everything I wrote was going to get done. And it's like, yeah, man. It's like,
nope.
This person has a 1 directive max. This might be a 2 directive max, or this is a person that can handle the 4 or 5 things that need to happen over the next week. It's like maybe that's the teaching part of me, right? It's like, what can this person handle that I'm about to send them? This person's super busy. They can handle 2 sentences. Okay, I got 2 sentences to make it happen. This person gets confused or flustered easily when I have too many things. So I've got 1 thing to tell them to do. What's the 1 thing that I need them to focus on for this next part?
Yeah. I used to think if it's getting really long and it's not a bulleted list, it's a phone call.
Yeah, I would say phone.
It's harder and
Although
harder now to even get people.
on the phone, yeah.
Yeah. I think we glitched out. You said although, and then I missed it.
The phone thing is like it's funny. It also depends on the person for that as well. Like I know some people communicate they need that phone bit, and I actually find that to be more common with like I don't want to say older, but people who are used to talking in the phone more often. There are some friends I know that it is not possible to get them on the phone. It's like I'm just me calling them and just letting it ring and go to voicemail is definitely going to happen. So I'll just send them the text. Or you start to learn like which mode of communication works best for which people, and I'll just go straight to that immediately.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Boy, this is the longest amount of time I've ever spent talking about it.
It's so nerdy.
I know. Is anyone even paying attention? Who's
No, I
watching?
don't know.
Anyone?
I don't think anyone's watching
Is
this one.
Ganatra here?
It's been kind of a weird weekend, I think. It's like, even though it's the long weekend,
Yeah.
getting a hold of people, sending stuff out. I haven't been getting, like, the usual, like, reverb from the output that I put out this week. I think everyone's just kind of, like, working it out this weekend. Everyone's probably reeling from the last 2 weeks. It's been probably bonkers for everybody.
I think you're right. Because I know I am.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 weeks were my first, real 2 solid weeks of online teaching.
Yeah.
And it's just dying for this weekend.
Yeah.
And it was just, let's not think about anything and let's do nothing, and family time and take pictures and
Yeah. It still flew by.
purposefully choose to not even respond. Huh?
It still flew by, though.
Do
I
what?
bet the weekend still flew by.
Oh yeah, completely.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I as far as family things and fun things, we did a lot of stuff, and that contributed to it as well. But yeah, I'm not ready to go back to work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not even close. Like taking my emails, there are a ton of things that still need to be planned, and yeah, this is gonna be an early morning, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I'm not doing any service to you by keeping you up late to talk about it.
Oh no, I mean it's fine. It's fine. I mean we've got kids. It's always an early morning.
Yeah.
But the difference will be, is it going to be a leisure morning where I'm sipping coffee and hanging out with my kids talking about the day, or is it going to be trying to do that and some other things, mental gymnastics?
Yeah.
It's going to be B for sure. I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be. But it's okay though.
This has been a recurring theme for me. I almost started to talk about this, but for the last 6 weeks, it's like constantly on the brim of being overwhelmed. And the advice that I kind of keep coming back to in my mind is actually from my wife. She says, like, okay, just make your priority list and start checking them off. But when you make your list, look at what you can delegate out. And there have been a lot of things on that list that it pains me to delegate because I think either like, no, I need to do that, or like I can do that the best, or I know exactly how I want that done. But if I don't start pushing some of those things off my plate, then I can't get to those things that like I actually have to be the one to do.
No, you're right. Yeah, I suck at that. I'm the world's worst delegator.
Yeah. So, maybe you and I can both work on that for the next couple months, just continuing to push things off of our plate.
The poor graduate student that's going to get slammed.
So that is that's one way to think of it. But I've started thinking of it as like, okay, if I don't, okay, this actually has happened to me multiple times the past couple weeks, which is I didn't want to delegate something because I was like, it's not gonna, no. And two things happened. One, the person did it better than I thought, and then it was a training opportunity because then I could say,
Hmm.
hey, this is what happened. Here are the things that I noticed. Maybe try this for next time. And now the next time this comes up, I have a baseline of how it's probably going to go, and probably they're going to do it a little bit better. And the second scenario is I delegated it, and it went just as well as I thought, or it went better than I thought it was going to go. And then I was like, oh, now I misjudged how that was gonna my read on how that was gonna play out, and so it's like a self check on my read of what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right. I think my fear of delegation has more to do with my automatic assumption is that everyone's busy, and then me asking them to do something on top of what I know that they're already working hard to do
Mm-hmm.
makes me feel inconsiderate
Mm-hmm.
of what it is that they're. I picked that up. I don't know how I picked that up. I don't know if it's even the way one should look at it. My guess is Steve Jobs didn't give a crap about that kind of thing. um,
Well, you're a nice guy, man. You're nice. You're considerate. You're a nice person. Um,
yeah. Well, I've been accused of being all of those things.
yeah. Well, I'm not saying that, and I know that you know that I'm not saying that that's a negative thing,
I
but
know.
that's why you
No.
have those. You're very thoughtful of how this is going to affect other people before you
Mhm.
pass it off to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with what you say. I mean, if someone's slammed and this gets tossed on them, I mean, how good is it going to be when it comes back?
Yeah.
Um, but your wife is also correct. How good will it be if I'm so slammed and I can't even do it? You know, I get it. Uh, what is it? Teach a person to fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
back to
that's that. Yeah. No, that's the right way to look at it.
back to someone that we were referencing at the beginning of the talk, which is Bob Duke. I remember one time, he'd come into town to teach his classes at Colburn, and we ran into each other in the cafeteria or something. I was like, "Oh, hey, how's it going, Bob?" And he's like, "Good." I was like, "Oh, is it crazy for you right now? Because it's like the middle of the spring semester, and it's all the professors are running around like chickens with their heads cut off." And he's like, "No, things are good. Like this got 3 papers in review, and grad classes are going great, and giving a couple talks, and yeah, everything's great." And it made me pause for a second because a few things happened around that time. One was I vowed that I would stop saying busy when people are like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And like, I used to be like, "Oh, I'm busy." It's like, dude, who's not busy? Don't say you're busy. Okay, just
I get it. I refuse to say that myself.
right. Just don't say it. But then also it was, here's someone who has control of how and where they're spending their time, and they're not being, they have the measures in place to where they don't make it crazy for themselves. Like, you allow it to get crazy, basically. And either you need to create systems and processes around you that have release valves for the crazy as things come in, or you need to build a team around you to take care of the crazy. But being crazy, being busy, that's not, it doesn't have to be that way. You just have to figure out a way to titrate it as it's coming in.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it reminds me of the graduate student that came into the band office at Texas, and I can't remember if they said it to me or if they said it to Scott Bersaya. They came in and they're like, "Hey, so how's everything going? I'm just really busy. I'm really slammed, and I'm just wondering if I can talk to Professor Junkin to see if I can like get out of this thing." And and the response was, "Oh, you're busy?" And you're getting ready to tell him how busy you are? You let me know how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I started to have that, like, hey, what do the professors think of us if we think we're busy? Or like, what does my boss think if I think I'm busy? Because when I was teaching, you'd have high school kids come up and they'd say, oh, I'm so busy. And I'm like, man, you have more time now than you will ever have in your life. Undergrad person, you have more time in your life than you ever will have in your life, but it's not to say that
Ever.
they don't feel, like they shouldn't feel like they're busy, or that they're not, they don't feel the burden or the pressure of busy. It's just that your threshold for what it feels like to be busy maybe expands. You learn how to work faster and more efficiently as you become more self-aware, and so maybe you can take on more, or you get better at saying no, like, which is one of the recurring themes that you had from a couple weeks ago also.
Right. And what's interesting is the other part of it too is like, there's healthy stress and there's bad stress. That healthy stress keeps you motivated. That healthy stress is associated with feelings of learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Learning doesn't feel good. I mean, everyone would be a genius if it felt great, because you'd want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
But learning is hard, and when you're in the thick of it, it does not feel good. And you feel dumb and you feel stupid, and that's another kind of stress, And during all of this, obviously we're still in the era of COVID, but what we've been doing at our school is having conversations with our students about mental health and self-care. And what's really interesting is, like, one of our guests who came to speak with the wind ensemble, that was like a big question for a lot of the students. They just wanted to know how was handling stress, and how are they dealing with pressure, and how are they producing and still being creative despite all of this. And it was just a great thing to hear them ask about, to realize that that's what they cared about. It's like, here is this wonderful person for you to speak with. You can ask them anything. How did you make your first million? What are your milestones? None of that. It was, how are you making it happen right now? And then I asked my students to send me 5 takeaways from these conversations. 90% of those, and I don't think I'm being generous, I think that's pretty accurate. About 90% of the responses, in the top 3 responses, were so appreciative of the openness that person gave in talking about their vulnerability and the things that they're struggling with, and how they're dealing with stress, and how important self-care was to them. And it's just crazy. Did you ever have conversations like this when you were in graduate school, or undergrad, or high school?
No, man. It seems like the younger generation now has more awareness to self-care, self-awareness, mental wellness. Because, like, look at our parents. Our parents never talked about, I feel stressed, or work is it's a really heavy work week. It's like they just bottled it all up inside. But I think I definitely lean.
Well, my dad's answer was always work harder.
Yeah, exactly. I'm stressed out. Well, you're just not working hard enough, man. Let's go. Pick it up.
Right. Work harder. Wake up earlier.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Well, I'm just so behind in my work. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Well, ask questions and work harder. And it was always my fault. Yeah. It's crazy.
Man. Well, okay. I think we need to end on a high note here. I mean, there definitely have been a lot of takeaways and such, but can you tell me maybe 1 or 2 things that you're looking forward to over the next couple weeks or the next month?
Yeah. Well, let's see. We're having conversations about possibly doing hybrid scenarios, and and so I'm looking forward to s- seeing out a hypothesis. Okay, so like I've discovered that um, when on some students, the best way to really get at communication with them and to share ideas with them is to be in small groups. And so I'm excited to have them divided up into their small chamber groups
Mm.
that, that, that they'll be working on in one way or another, right? Like if we get to come back on campus in small, safe ways, then, they'll get to rehearse a little bit of that. But if not, we get to have these small group discussions that are completely isolated, yeah, not isolated, but it's just them. These 8 people are the people that are wholly focused on
Yeah.
this particular piece of music. So I'm excited about that. Um, I'm excited about how uh, how comfortable this is and what I want to do with it. You and I have talked about the other projects that we and I'm pumped about putting that content together. And then the other thing, I've got a lot of really awesome guests lined up for our students. I'm just really pumped about having them meet all of these people that I admire so much. Um, my mentors, my heroes, and it has a lot to do with. We talked about this way back, and I don't know if it was actually on any of these live things, but it has a lot to do with how COVID has sort of granted access to people that normally would not be available to do some of the things, like show up for an hour and a half for a Q&A session with a wind ensemble when they're normally halfway around the country doing another gig, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm pumped about that. Really, really pumped about that. Yeah. How about you?
Let's see, September.
Time's on the horizon, but what's got you going?
Yeah. I would say work. So the company work is going as well, if not better, than we hoped for. But we are still standing at that, like, we've got to cross over this line to make it like a thing. So part of so it's like, I don't know, it's like it's stressful, but it's also very eager anticipation. And I would say the stuff that we've been working on it with teachers and artists and teachers like you is seeing what we can create. We've pushed out 3 or 4 big projects this past weekend, and to see them come to life, it's like it's becoming a regular thing to have an idea, and then very quickly a week later it's like boom, it's there, you can see it, you're using it, people are doing it, you're getting feedback. It's just like we're shortening the ideation to implementation deployment phase. It's just, and so it's really cool. It's really stressful, but it's really cool, and we're getting better at it, like literally every day. It's palpable how much better it's getting. So that's really exciting. Family wise, we had like a huge breakthrough on Friday with my daughter's kindergarten class. This is totally random, and I promise I won't go down this rabbit hole too long, but her teacher showed her this process of reading, right? Like, so I don't know if you guys do this, but when I first started reading with her, it was like, okay, cat, right? It's a C, so that's a k, a, t, cat, right? And that's apparently not how you're supposed to do it. That's wrong. So her teacher was like, you have to blend the words. So instead of saying cat, you should go cat, cat. So I'm sitting there in Zoom class, I'm watching it happen, and literally like 0 out of 10 children understand the process, right? And you can only do it for 20 minutes because there are 15 because they're 4-year-olds. So anyway, now dad knows the method and the approach. I'm like, okay, let's try it out. So we finish class, we eat lunch, we do it again. I'm like, hey, let's just work on blending, okay? So we blend for like 20, 30 minutes together, and it's getting kind of like heavy. Where I'm like, look, you're not trying. You're not trying your best right now. You're not paying attention. You're not putting forth your best effort. Like, come on, you can do this. Do it, right? And then she did it. There was like, I literally saw the light bulb moment. She's like, boom, and she just like crushed a word. It was like top. I was like, yes. And then we did another one, and we did another one, and so she read like a page of these like 3-letter words, and by the end of the page, it was like, you're doing it. That's amazing. She's like, let's do it again. And so we did like a second page, and then we did a third page, and she has been just like reading everything. Like it's really crazy. I have never seen her go from like 0 to 80 that distinctly, on anything really. It was like literally like you could not read. You knew the sounds that the letters make, to all of a sudden being able to read many, many words that you've never read before, like sight reading. So that was pretty cool, man.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's
Thanks.
really great.
So that's the stuff that gets me excited now. Dad stuff.
Dad stuff, I know, right? Yeah, well, like, hey, Lydia asked for a guitar for Christmas. That has made my
that's
day.
awesome. That'll be great. I'm waiting for you guys to do your first.
Yeah. So I made her one.
What?
Oh yeah, it'll be great. You know, like she was like, I want to. Can I have a guitar? Like what we did was, we finished this wheat thin box, and then she looked at the box and she put rubber bands on it, and she started strumming it. She's like, look, Dad, I got a guitar just like you. I said, well, hang on, let me do a couple of things. So I went and I cut a hole in it so that it could have some kind of like, so it would resonate a little bit, and then I got some crayons to make like a little bridge, and then it got better.
Wow.
And she was like, oh wow, this is great. Okay, teach me a song. I'm like, well, honey, it's not really a guitar, but okay. Yeah. So we did that, and then I got my guitar out and played with her, and then she's like, well, I want a stick that comes out of my guitar like yours. Oh, like a neck? Yeah. So then I went out to the garage and found another box and cut it up. And anyway, she had a cardboard guitar, and we were playing around with it. And she was really into it, man. She was into singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and I thought, oh, this is great. And then she goes, Dad, what else is in your guitar case? And I said, well, I've got picks and strings and metronome and all this stuff. And she was like, well, I want some of that.
Cool.
So we got more rubber bands, got more picks. I have an extra metronome, and I set it in there, and she wanted to learn how to use a metronome. So yesterday, Lydia learned how to use a metronome.
Wow.
She was like, well, what does it do? And I said, well, it helps you stay on tempo so that you don't speed up and you don't slow down. And so I turned it on, and we sang together, and I said, see how I can sing with the metronome? And she sang with that metronome for most of the night.
Wow.
It was crazy. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star at quarter note equals 87.
The best part about that is that, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's how. Gosh, man, I feel like my teaching has changed so much because of Dad mode, and it makes me think, I taught so poorly for so long. They came from these, arbitrary goals that the teacher had made up in their mind, as opposed to, it's like recognizing what is interesting to the student and like nurturing it. And
Yes.
Like that whole sequence you described was just so organic, and to Lydia, you guys were just playing, and man, I think back to when I was this 4 to 12 age, and all these little things that I'm sure my parents never thought twice of, like after it happened, but is like crystal clear in my mind. That little arts and crafts thing, or that little activity we did, and that's when I learned this. So
You're right. I mean, if you were to dial down or analyze everything that you did with the blending of the words, or everything that I did with Lydia concerning, the building of the guitar and the metronome. I mean, these are really high level things that we're asking people to do. But it was, as you said, it was taking an interest that they had, making it fun, nurturing that interest, and never really defining anything, just doing it. Uh, define later. You know, Lydia learned about physics and acoustics, and then how to keep a steady beat.
All right, I think.
Did I lose you there, buddy?
My computer apparently just is not happening. I've got to figure this out, man, because it's been acting super weird the last couple days. So I'm gonna end the live stream here, but maybe we'll wrap here. But
yeah,
dude, 6 out of 6, we did it.
We did it. I did that. We did this.
Yeah, this was a fun experiment, man. Yeah. I'm glad that we set the time out, and if nothing else, well, I have some ideas. I know we've already talked about some of the ideas for the next steps, but this has been good. So, thanks for agreeing to do this with me, Albert.
You're welcome, dude. Thanks for having me. This is great. Really
all right,
good.
Everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you watched the very end, you are a scholar and a saint, and a very nice person. Thanks. And we will be in touch soon with what's happening next. Actually, I'm really excited to share some of the things that Albert and I are kind of working on in the background as well. So we'll talk more about that once we get some more pieces put together here. So thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of the night. We'll see you soon.